Annual Governor's Awards, Bassett paid tribute to the 10 black women who have won Oscars and expressed hope that there would be more opportunities for people of color moving forward. The 97-year-old Brooks was honored for a lifetime in the business going back to the 1950s. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the title?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after a one-point win last night over Toronto. First time they have won consecutive games since December 7th. Strong game from Anthony Davis. He scored 20 of his game-high 41 points in the fourth quarter. AD also had 11 rebounds. LeBron had 22 points and 12 assists. Toronto is staying in town to play the Clippers tonight at Crypto.com. The Clippers are only 3 games behind Minnesota for the best record in the Western Conference. Tip-off time tonight is 7:30. 4 NFL teams are now looking for a new head coach. Tennessee fired Mike Vrabel on Tuesday. Tennessee joins the Chargers, Atlanta, and Washington in the search for a new head coach. Magic Johnson, proud owner of the Washington Commanders, hired former Golden State GM Bob Myers to assist him with the Commanders' coaching search. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
So, what are you doing this Friday morning? How about you come join the KBLA delegation as we make a historic announcement and unveil our climate justice campaign for 2024. We'll be assembled for this major press conference along with LA Mayor Karen Bass, Ben Jealous, Executive Director of the Sierra Club, and a host of other public and private leaders who are joining us on this journey to justice, climate justice. We can't think of a better way to kick off the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, linking social justice and climate justice. So, come join us this Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. at the beautiful MLK Memorial Tree Grove at the top of Kenneth Hahn Park off La Cienega. Once again, that's this Friday morning, January 12th at 10:30 a.m. as we take on the task of elevating the climate conversation by amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the climate catastrophes we are all witnessing in real time. KBLA delegation, we hope to see you this Friday morning at KBLA Talk 1580. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king.
1, 2, 3, go! Let's get it going. I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. And by the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit TheTavisSmileyShow.com. That's TheTavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this program at your leisure. A great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, can acts of peace overcome systems of oppression? Think about that. Can acts of peace in this moment in late modernity overcome systems of oppression? Professor Eli S. McCarthy joins us for a critical examination that is, of nonviolence as both an ethical ideal and a practical tool for social change. We're headed toward the King holiday just days from now, so we'll talk again about nonviolence as both an ethical ideal and a practical tool for social change. That's in our second hour. We need the whole hour for that, and probably then some. In our third hour, two conversations. Up first, A Century of Courage, Dr. Eugenia Clark on Fisk University's pivotal role in the civil rights movement and its unwavering fight for equity. We'll talk about Fisk, one of those great HBCUs, at the top of our third hour. On the B side of our three, John Arson enlightens us on the legacy of the Triple Nickels, America's pioneering black paratroopers. So 2 great hours in front of us, but this hour promises to be no less inspiring. 2 more conversations in this hour. On the B side, he was more than just a hero on January the 6th. Former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. You know the brother I'm talking about, Harry Dunn. He opens up to us today about his scars, about the fight for justice, and his mission to protect democracy now as a current candidate for Congress. The brother police officer that we all saw 3 years ago is now running for Congress. His name is Harry Dunn. We'll talk to Harry Dunn on the B side of this hour. But we commenced today's show talking politics with former Wisconsin U.S. Senate candidate Mandela Barnes. Mandela Barnes, how are you today, sir?
I'm blessed. How about yourself? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I say it all January.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you. Happy New Year to you, number one. Number two, I am blessed and highly favored. And number three, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm just glad to be here and glad to be on with you, Mandela, once again. So thank you for the time. Let's make the most of this half hour that we have here. We were talking to one of our guests yesterday for obvious reasons. 1 week from yesterday, the presidential race for the White House really kicks up officially with Iowa. The caucuses are next Monday. I said yesterday, that was Monday, I guess, on our show Monday. So anyway, this coming Monday, the Iowa caucuses kick these things off. And we'll talk about Wisconsin and the critical role it will play in this presidential race in a moment. But what do you make of the fact that all these years later, while the Democrats moved South Carolina up on the calendar for the primaries, this country, though, still focuses on Iowa as the first place for any harbingers or suggestions or narratives about what we can expect. What do you make of Iowa being that place?
I'll just tell you, it shows who the parties are prioritizing.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you right now that the Democratic Party made a very conscious choice to make South Carolina an earlier state than Iowa, and the Republicans, because their base has not changed over the last several decades, since whenever. The reality is they have a specific set of voters that they want to focus on, and they have made that very clear. They're very intentional about doing that.
Mm-hmm. What since you went there, I followed you as I always do. What do you make these days of the GOP base? You use that phrase. Let's interrogate it for a moment. What do you make of that base? What's happening to it, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, the GOP base is one that does not have any interest in growing. It has zero interest in diversifying, has zero interest in keeping up with the times. That's why all their policies are so regressive, whether it's abortion bans or whether it's limiting the right to vote for people. They have zero desire to try to move forward as we move forward as a country. They have zero interest in being lockstep. As we see generational shifts in this country, I can say the Democratic Party has been significantly more responsive to the changes in society.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Democratic Party, we saw President Biden just recently at Mother Emanuel Church, and we saw all the drama with the ceasefire protesters shouting him down and the black folk of the church responding 4 more years. Everybody saw the clips. They've been everywhere. And yet I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. Let me just ask you point blank. Do you believe that while Joe Biden is calling for black folk to stand with him, as he did in that church, has Joe Biden earned the black vote?
I will say that Joe Biden has been transformative in his presidency in many different ways, taking on issues like environmental justice. The number of black female federal judges that he has appointed has exceeded any number throughout the course of history in this country. The fact that he has made black issues a priority, the number of appointments that he's made to his own cabinet, he's a president who has very real desire. I mean, the decision to move South Carolina up in the primary calendar wasn't one that just happened without the president's consent. I will say the fact that he has shown up and made transformative investments in job training and job creation in the black community is something that needs to be, acknowledged. It is a very real thing. Now, look, I will say there's always more work to be done. I'm not here to just say the president is doing everything perfectly, because that's not the case with any president. The reality is, with there being so much more work to do, there has been a solid framework. There has been a solid base and foundation that's been laid by this administration with the president and vice president.
Yep. I hear the point you're making. When we come forward, I want to continue interrogating that, because there's a distinct difference between symbolism and substance for me, as I know there is for you. They're both necessary. I wouldn't poo-poo either one of them. But symbolism and substance are not the same things. And symbolically, no doubt, the president gets an A+. He's put a lot of black faces in high places. I'm just not sure he's been progressive, as progressive as he ought to be on a number of fronts. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Wisconsin, the role it's going to play. That's Mandela Barnes' home state. You're listening to Mandela Barnes right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DePrima from the show First Things First, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Join us tomorrow with Pastor Q of the Row Church and iconic civil rights leader Reverend James Lawson. Plus headlines, trending topics, and your phone calls only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Mandela Barnes, let's pick up where we left off a moment ago. You and I both agree there's a distinct difference between symbolism and substance. Symbolically, no question that the president has done a great deal to put black faces in high places, but is that enough?
No, I absolutely agree. And it's certainly more than about symbolism, because we've had an increase in black participation in health insurance that it's about 400,000 new people who have been able to sign up for healthcare. The reduction in Black child poverty, you got to think about the child tax credit that the president has pushed, but Congress failed to act. I mean, there has been historic investments in Black college and university. I am a HBCU grad myself. That's over $7 billion for HBCUs. There's been action that's been taken on marijuana legalization, or excuse me, I should say marijuana reform, which unfortunately a lot of people in our community have been impacted by that. And lowering the cost of prescription drugs, the cost of insulin. More people are going to qualify for lowering insulin prices this year. So there has been a lot of substance, and unfortunately, much of it is in the weeds, doesn't necessarily get the media attention, or not the things people are talking about, you know, when you're hanging out with family or at the dinner table or at the barber shop. But these things are actually happening to help make life for Black Americans a little bit easier.
I'm curious as to, first of all, your HBCU. I mentioned we're going to be talking about Fisk later in today's program. So go ahead and shout out your HBCU, Mandela Barnes.
You know, Fisk was down the street. I visited Fisk campus. I had a great time there. I had a great time. I'm a proud graduate of Alabama A&M University. There you
go. I love whenever anybody says that. Let me just give you an opportunity to push it out there. I ain't mad at you about that. There are a number of issues on which Black people have been disappointed in President Biden. Progressive issues, namely, as you well know, voting rights, meaningful police reform. Those issues stand out pretty dramatically, number one. Number two, these polls, every poll, every survey, every study, which is part of the reason why Joe Biden was at Mother Emanuel, these polls continue to suggest that at best, his support in Black America is soft, and at worst, it has shrunk to some degree. How do you read that? If the president has been that great for Black people symbolically and substantively, how do you read the feelings that many have of disappointment on voting rights and police reform that didn't move at all in the Senate, number one? And number two, how would you explain his softening position at best in these polls?
So I will say there's always room for disappointment, but what I can also say is that we have a president who shows up and who will at least listen. The alternative, who is the likely Republican nominee for president, who is the former president, Donald Trump, would not at all ever imagine taking these steps to even listen to our community and our concerns. Now, on policing, I will say the use of chokeholds were restricted in federal law enforcement. The president signed an executive order given the lack of action by the U.S. Senate. And when it comes to polling numbers are, snapshot points in time, but they are numbers that we should take seriously. And I do believe that the president is making good faith efforts to show up, to hear the concerns, to not just make the poll numbers look better, but to actually assuage the concerns of people in the Black community.
Yep. Let me ask you, as painful though it may be, I know some time has passed, Mandela. I'm sure it's still a little painful, but I think the answer to this question will be instructive and informative in a variety of ways. I do not know which, but I want to ask anyway, and I'll interrogate it at the appropriate time. But I wonder if I can ask you to look back on your Senate campaign, because there are a whole lot of people across this country, Black, white, red, brown, yellow, who are rooting for you. A lot of folk contributed to your campaign from parts unknown. The national media was following this campaign pretty closely, thinking that you had a chance to win this thing in Wisconsin. And what a day that would have been for a brother named Mandela. You think Barack is something? A brother named Mandela. To pull off a U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin. It's not lost on me nor you that there were a number of other high-profile African-Americans who were on the ballot in some pretty major Senate races. There was North Carolina. There was Florida. There was there are other states. But a number of high-profile African-Americans on the ballot. And, of course, there was Raphael Warnock, who pulled it off in Georgia. But there were a number of, again, high-profile Black folk running for the U.S. Senate. Never that many high-profile African-Americans on the ballot as the Democratic Party nominee in states going to the Senate. I've thought about it many times that all 5 or 6 of y'all won. That would have been a game-changing moment. To have 5 or 6 Negroes go to the Senate at the same time would have just sort of changed the game. As you look back on that moment that had so many of us titillated and excited about really putting a new face on the U.S. Senate, it didn't quite work out that way, but broadly speaking, and specifically inside of Wisconsin, just share with me some of your takeaways. I'm sure you've had a little time now to think about it. Give me some of your takeaways from that critical moment, that historical moment.
Yeah, certainly. I'm incredibly proud of the race that we won. Certainly wish that things would have turned out differently, but I'm proud of the historic strides we made in terms of fundraising, in terms of voter participation. The most recent election versus that particular incumbent, we had far more votes than the last the last couple attempts at that race, at that seat. But given how far we were able to come, and I'm incredibly grateful for all the support I received from across the country, there was still too much that we put into that race to walk away, to give up. And that's why I'm still involved. I'm still involved because I look at where the shortcomings were. I look at, where we could have had higher voter participation. And that's the reason why I joined up with Power to the Polls, make sure that we are addressing the issues that voters have, the frustrations that voters have. When I say that frustration with the president is valid, that goes for every elected official, it goes for every candidate, myself included. So if there are areas, pockets where I could have improved, I want to make sure that we're doing that. That means showing up, talking to voters about the issues, doing the voter education piece long before election season rolls around. At Power to the Polls, we're focused on year-round engagement, making sure people are familiar with the issues at hand and making sure that people can actually have an outlet to voice their opinions and to voice those frustrations instead of having people not show up to the polls because they feel that both parties are the same or they feel that nobody's doing anything for them. And if people feel like nobody's doing nothing for them, then they should be able to express that in a productive way, not just staying home because, look, the elections are going to happen with or without folks. And if we aren't showing up, then we will never have our concerns be addressed. Now, is everything going to change overnight? No. And as bad as things are, that leads to even more frustration that things aren't changing overnight for the better for us when it seems like that constantly happens for the most wealthy, for the same old people who've gotten ahead in our society, who've gotten ahead in this economy, who've gotten ahead in this political environment. And so we are working to build power so that folks know that it's more than about Election Day. It's about what happens the day after the election. How do we hold leaders accountable to actually drive change in communities? So with that being said, the only thing I really could have used certainly was, more hours, more weeks left in the campaign, one more week, and, whatever the case may be. I can't spend too much time on that. I will drive myself crazy doing so. Drive myself half crazy already thinking about the race as often as I do.
No, I appreciate you taking the question because I know it can be a little tricky at times, but it was worth asking because I figured something good would come out of it, and you gave us something to think about. You mentioned Power to the Polls. I'm not naive in asking this, but of all the things that you could have done after that historic race where you ran such an amazing campaign, and obviously your career ain't over with yet. That's just a moment. You mentioned earlier about polls are just a snapshot in time. That was just a snapshot in the time of your life then. I know there's a lot more to come from Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin and beyond. But of all the things that you could have done, again, no naivete here, why, what happened and why did you think that this work was so critical right now? You chose this as opposed to X, Y, or Z. Why this?
Really, it's me returning to my roots as an organizer. My first job out of college, I was a field organizer, knocking on doors for $400 a week in gas reimbursements. And I spent time as an issue-based organizer with an interfaith group, taking on issues of jobs and economic development, education, immigration reform, and treatment instead of prison. And this was just sort of a natural space for me to land. And building power helps us combat big money. That's another part of my race too, because I want people to remember that, the outside spending, the super PAC spending in my campaign or during my campaign, the other side dwarfed us by $26 million. Now, candidate for candidate, I raised more than my opponent, candidate for candidate, but the outside spending $26 million and still coming within 1% shows what the power of organizing means. It was just still a very, very steep hill to get over. Now, if we do the organizing work effectively, if we do it on the front end instead of waiting 90 days before an election, we'll be able to combat big money. We'll be able to be more impactful than dollars spent on the airwaves, and we're doing this in a grassroots way.
Yep. Since you went there, let me ask a question that I've never asked before of you, and I don't know that I've asked of anybody else. Maybe I have, but it occurs to me now, given what you've just said, Mandela Barnes. And that is, and let me just preface it by saying I know there's really no way around it per se at the moment because of the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United. People are, corporations are people, and anybody can donate what they want to donate. And I'm still upset about that Citizens United decision. That said, when you mentioned that you outraised, here's a black man running against a white male incumbent in Wisconsin, and he outraises the white brother. Mandela Barnes, candidate to candidate, outraised the white boy, the white guy he was running against in Wisconsin. You heard him say a moment ago, though, that where he took a beat down was the $26 million in other funding, outside funding. $26 million. Now, I'm not naive, neither are you. We know that these Senate races are not just about the particular state in which the campaign is being contested or held. The Senate is a national body, and what they pass impacts and affects all of us, even though you represent a particular state. But there's something really, really strange to me, and it can cut both ways. Raphael Warnock got a whole lot of money outside of Georgia that helped him win, and that made the difference. I can see it cutting the other way as well. But it's just a strange thing to me that much money can be raised outside of the state, outside of Wisconsin, which impacts a race that is really about the citizens of Wisconsin. Again, it cuts both ways. I don't need to color any more than that. What do you make of that reality that in these Senate races, so much of this money comes from outside the state?
Well, I can tell you, much like our economy, our politics is influenced by a handful of billionaires pulling the strings. And that's what happens. We have, and it wasn't like 26 million people donating $1. We're talking about a handful of people who, were able to reach into their pockets, mostly due to tax breaks and incentives that the incumbent, that my opponent actually voted for, that put more money back into their pockets. So really, it comes out to a return on investment. I mean, these are pennies to these. So $26 million is nothing to a lot of these people, right? We're talking about, when we talk about, Black Americans, when we talk about voters who are frustrated with the system, working class voters, this is life changing, not just for one person. We're talking about a life changing sum of money for households of people. Yet we have one or two or, 5 people who can just easily write that check and ultimately change the course of our politics to make sure that they keep the benefit while so many people continue to struggle. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. Now, we're working to fight that, but while that fight is going on to get big money out of politics, we can only work on the things that we can control.
Yep, and that's why you're doing Power to the Polls. I get it. Let me offer this, I think, is the exit question. Got about 2 minutes to go here. And that is, as we sit in this moment, you mentioned earlier, I repeat once again, that polls are a snapshot in time. But these polls have a pattern to them. And the pattern at the national level, specifically now I'm talking about the race of, the presumed race of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, part 2 here, the sequel. The polling is a snapshot in time, but these polls also have a pattern to them, Mandela Barnes. And so as you sit here right now, I got you on tape here. As you sit here on this date, what is your gut feeling about the months ahead between now and November?
It's going to be a brutal few months ahead. As you know, the former president will do or say whatever, including inciting violence. So, he's done it before. We can only expect that he'll do it again, which, causes a whole lot of concern. But this is a race, too, where people should realize what's at stake, whether it's democracy or authoritarianism. And our job is to make sure that people actually know what authoritarianism looks like. It's very abstract for a lot of people because we haven't had the experience in our lifetime. And for many folks, it may not mean a whole lot to them. It may just be a word. But I can tell you, I can assure you that it's certainly not a path any of us want to go through. It's certainly not a path that we want to have set for our future generations. This will be a race that we will see incredible sums of money spent in so many places. And there will also be an incredible amount of disinformation that's flooding through communities, which is, again, why organizing is so important. But we can expect lie after lie from the other side. And it's tough when you are having a battle that's waged between fact and fiction. You know the old adage is Like, people, you don't argue with fools. People from a distance can't tell who is who.
That's right.
But this will be that exact scenario where there will be foolish arguments waged against factual arguments, and people from a distance won't be able to tell the two. And we need to shorten that distance to make sure people can be up close and personal to know what's happening.
I take your point. We will see. We'll be talking about it in the days ahead, whether or not that message that Joe Biden is putting out there is saving democracy. He's going to wrap his campaign around the fact that this election is really about saving this democracy from anarchy, from authoritarianism. We'll see if that message sells, or as they say down south, we'll see if that dog hunts. In the meantime, we thank Mandela Barnes for this conversation, for the work he has done already, and the work he's continued to do through Power to the Polls, Wisconsin. Mandela, appreciate you, brother. All the best to you. Talk to you soon.
Of course. Talk to you later.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Nevada, a Las Vegas judge is setting bail at $750,000 for the man charged in the 1996 murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. The attorney for Dwayne Davis, who is African American, filed a motion for either a reasonable bail to be set or his client to be released on his own recognizance. Davis's lawyer argued there isn't any evidence to suggest he would attempt to leave the country before his trial begins in June. We're now learning that a lawsuit has been filed in Louisiana seeking to block the state's new ban on transgender health care for kids. Attorneys for 5 families argue that the law violates the state constitution's right to privacy. State lawmakers approved the ban last year. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Lakers are back at 500 after a one-point win last night over Toronto. First time they have won consecutive games since December 7th. Strong game from Anthony Davis. He scored 20 of his game-high 41 points in the fourth quarter. AD also had 11 rebounds. LeBron had 22 points and 12 assists. Toronto is staying in town to play the Clippers tonight at Crypto.com. The Clippers are only 3 games behind Minnesota for the best record in the Western Conference. Tip-off time tonight is 7:30. 4 NFL teams are now looking for a new head coach. Tennessee fired Mike Vrabel on Tuesday. Tennessee joins the Chargers, Atlanta, and Washington in the search for a new head coach. Magic Johnson, proud owner of the Washington Commanders, hired former Golden State GM Bob Myers to assist him with the Commanders coaching search. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
It is indeed. I'm glad to have you hanging out with us today on our program. Great conversation with Mandela Barnes, and now we move to this. He was more than just a hero on January the 6th, although he was that, to be sure. Former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. You all know Harry Dunn. You know the name. You know the face, even though this is radio. Harry Dunn, former U.S. Capitol Police Officer, opens up to us right now about the scars, the fight for justice, and his new mission to protect democracy as a current candidate for Congress. Imagine having been a U.S. Capitol Police Officer on January the 6th. We'll talk about that in a moment. And now you decided you are going to run for Congress. I'm pleased to welcome Harry Dunn to this program. Harry Dunn, how are you, sir?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, my friend.
Man, it's good to have you on, brother. Thank you for the time. Let me start by saying thank you once again for your service on that fateful day, January the 6th. We'll get to your campaign in a moment and why you decided to run, but this audience, again, knows your name. We all know your face. We've seen you. Saw you at the January 6th committee hearings. Benny Thompson was a guest on this program a week or so ago. So we know you. We know your work. We know your witness. Well, again, we'll talk about the campaign in a moment. But since we are now just past 3 years ago from this historic day where you were in the middle of harm's way, take me back 3 years ago and give me some sense of your reflections a few years later.
You know, well, thank you for all those kind words, first of all. And, you know, we all saw what happened on January 6th. We know where we were. We know what we were doing. We know what we were thinking during those moments. And, you know, I don't know about a lot of other individuals, but it is seared in my head. It's seared in my memory. And the crazy thing about it is a lot of individuals are trying to rewrite what happened, tell us what we saw didn't really happen, or, you know, just flat out deny, you know, any wrongdoing of that day. So I think it's very important for individuals to keep on remembering, fighting back to keep the memory of that day alive. Not just the violence and everything, but the what it represents that we're trying to do, which is overthrow the will of the people, a free and fair election. And we need to keep that in the forefront and realize that it can happen again. And the reason why I say that, not because those people still exist, I've been fighting for accountability from day one. And that doesn't mean just the individuals who committed the crimes, but that means the individuals who empowered the individuals to do what they did, and that means the former president too.
Yeah. What do you make? You raised it, and I want to follow you. What do you make of the fact that so many people are trying, in fact, to rewrite history? I had a conversation about that on this program days ago. We've had a few conversations about it on this side of the third anniversary of January 6th. You see all these attempts, all these efforts, as you said, to rewrite history. Chairman Thompson talked about that on this program days ago. That people are telling us that that what happened really didn't happen. We saw it, but they tell us we're believing our lying eyes, right? We know what we saw, but you see this attempt to rewrite history. Now that's offensive to me for a lot of reasons, but I can only imagine how much more offensive it must be to you because I wasn't in the middle of it. My life wasn't on the line that day. So when you see these efforts, these attempts, and sadly they're working in a lot of ways. And some of these efforts are working to rewrite what actually happened that day. You want to turn white supremacists into patriots. I mean, you've heard all this stuff. You're on the campaign trail. Yeah. You talk about this stuff every day. But again, if it's offensive for me in LA, sitting in a studio as a citizen of this country, I can't imagine how much more offensive it must be for you to hear folk trying to rewrite what happened that day when you were in the midst of it.
Yes, it is offensive, but we need to realize though, it is their right to do that. As crazy as that sounds, it is their right to do that. They have the right to do that. It's not illegal unless they're under oath, right? And they can tell all the lies that they want. That's why it's so important to get people that are willing to push back and be truth tellers to the country, to the American people, and confront them head on with their lies, and set the record straight. They can do it. That's why we need, like I said, we need fighters in Congress that are willing to do that. And that's what I'm willing to do. And the reason why I have been able to, remember, it's been 3 years since January 6th. And for those 3 years, I still went to work every day protecting the members who were telling those lies. Why was I able to do that? How was I able to do that? Because I believe in democracy. I believe in the Constitution. And I believe that the way we stop that is to put people in Congress who actually will be the voice of the American people. And that's what I'm doing.
I'm curious as to whether or not, and if I'm getting too personal, tell me, Harry Dunn, but I'm curious as to whether or not, given what happened that day and given what you endured, was there any point after that when you had nightmares or any sort of PTSD because of what happened that day?
Yeah, PTSD is real. And, one of the things that I have been pounding the pavement also, in addition to, accountability and justice, is mental health and the mental health scars that surrounded that. I've been trying to be very transparent about, my struggles with that. And when you say like nightmares and stuff, it's not really a nightmare if, you keep on living the same loop in your head. It's not a flashback. You're living in this reality every single day. And, you want to do something about it. I do have a great support system, and I thank you for even bringing that question up because, it is very important. This world is really cruel, man. And we need people that we can, turn to and we need to focus on the individuals that want to see us succeed and to want us to be successful. And those are the individuals we need to focus on, not necessarily the naysayers, because that will consume you and it will eat you up.
Yeah, I've got some specific questions about your campaign in a moment, but let me ask you one more question about this, since you raised it. So what is it like being involved in this insurrection on the 6th of January, and for the next 3 years, you continue to go to work every day protecting people who you see on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC every night, just flat out lying. You see them every night on national television. You're reading them, reading their comments in the paper. You see them online, and you were there, and these fools are just flat out lying, and you're still going to work every day protecting these folk who are lying basically to you, to your face. You protected them. You see the lies, but you're still going to work every day. Like, what's that like? I mean, I don't know that I could have done that for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, well, it sucks. Just to be frank, it sucks. But it motivated me to step into this new role, to want to serve as their equal, to not being a guy that they just walk past every day and could be dismissed. But I want a seat at the table. And now, we talk a lot about a lot of institutions in this country that are broken. We need seats at the table because those institutions are going to exist. Whether we like it or not, we need seats at the table to have it reflective of the people who disagree with how they're being run right now.
His name is Harry Dunn. You know the name, you know the face. He's the brother Capitol Hill police officer who went right into duty that day. And you saw him testify at the January 6 hearings, the committee that Benny Thompson chaired. So you know who he is. Now, when we come forward, you'll learn more about his campaign. He's decided to run for Congress. He's running for a seat in Maryland, and we'll talk directly to Harry Dunn about the campaign when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
So, what are you doing this Friday morning? How about you come join the KBLA delegation as we make a historic announcement and unveil our climate justice campaign for 2024. We'll be assembled for this major press conference along with LA Mayor Karen Bass, Ben Jealous, Executive Director of the Sierra Club, and a host of other public and private leaders who are joining us on this journey to justice, climate justice. We can't think of a better way to kick off the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, linking social justice and climate justice. So, come join us this Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. at the beautiful MLK Memorial Tree Grove at the top of Kenneth Hahn Park off La Cienega. Once again, that's this Friday morning, January 12th at 10:30 a.m. as we take on the task of elevating the climate conversation by amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the climate catastrophes we are all witnessing in real time. KBLA delegation, we hope to see you this Friday morning at KBLA Talk 1580. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king.
Every business seeks an advantage, whether it's having the best location, hiring top talent, or spotting trends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Harry Dunn, tell me more about why and how you made this decision to run for Congress. And I asked that before I pass the mic to you. I asked that because you see these people lying every day on the Hill. You're there every day protecting them, but you also are close enough to it to see the dysfunction up close. You see the ugliness. You see the sausage making up close. Why would you want to be a part of this dysfunctional government?
You know, that's a great question. What am I doing?
Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, brother? Yeah.
Because I view myself as a common sense individual. I wrote a book, and, it came out in October. And, I didn't expect many politicians to read my book. But the world feels like it's on fire right now, right? And a lot of people are looking for stability and some security. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that one of the most powerful tools that we have as Americans is our vote. And an educated voter is the best type of voter out there. And right now, there are a lot of uneducated people out there, respectfully, because what they're being perpetuated is lies. Mm-hmm. So we need, like I said, Mr. Sarbanes from Maryland's 3rd District, when he announced that he is not seeking re-election, I had to actually have an honest conversation with myself and say, wow, here's an opportunity to continue to fight even harder. You know, I'm not a career politician. I'm a career public servant. I've been one for the last 15 plus years of my life. And what more of an extension of public service than to be a voice for the people of America and specifically Maryland's 3rd District.
Yep. So tell me about the 3rd District. Those of us who know the state of Maryland have been to Maryland. Tell me where and a bit about the 3rd District.
You know, it's Columbia, parts of Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, Carroll County. You know, I'm really excited. Like it's an urban area with a lot of educated individuals. We're proud to live in the state of Maryland under the leadership of Wes Moore. He's doing a fantastic job, I believe. But we need to continue, like I said, to fill Congress with representatives of people that look like and represent the values of people of America. And that's why I'm fighting to get in there.
Yep. Tell me more. Tell me how the campaign is coming. Before you do that, I'm looking at a bunch of messages that are flowing into this, flowing in while we're having this conversation. One of them says, "Mr. Dunn, I already donated to your campaign just because. Already donated to your campaign just because. Glad to hear your thoughtful passion about your cause." So there are people who are donating already to this campaign. So tell me how the campaign's going, man.
You know, and that right there, that means a lot to me. Thank you specifically to that individual and everybody else. I tell you what, in this short time that I've been in this political arena, which I announced my run on Friday, I have learned that elections do cost money. That's one thing I learned real quick. So the support of individuals like that last not caller,
listener,
listener,
yeah, sure.
Listener. That means the world to me, and thank you. And one thing I really pray that I can get to Congress and make you proud. Thank you for believing in me. The campaign's coming along well. I'm very busy, but it's worth it. Good trouble is one of the things. I mean, I have a tattoo of good trouble on my arm, and it's one of the things that I believe in, and it's necessary to stand up. And doing the right thing has never been an issue for me. The issue is why aren't more people doing it? Yeah. So, you know, hopefully I can be some type of motivation for somebody out there.
No, when you say good trouble, one thinks immediately of John Lewis, and if you can stand in the same place that John Lewis stood and serve in the way that John Lewis served honorably, you'd be doing a great deal. Not just for yourself and your family, but certainly for this country. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Harry Dunn, a few more questions before we let him go. You're listening to Harry Dunn right now on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions because we've got your black. Listen up. If you're one of the more than 100,000 California tenants who were rejected or delayed when applying for COVID rental assistance, you've got a second chance. Under the terms of a new settlement, California's Housing and Community Development Department agreed to audit its past denials. The program ended in March 2022, but the advocacy groups, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, Policy link and strategic actions for a just economy sued the department. According to the coalition's analysis of state data, the department rejected nearly 30% of all applicants. Under the settlement, the department agreed to clear all renters in the pipeline within 6 months. The settlement applies to anyone who sought assistance from the state's Housing is Key program before April 1st, 2022, whose applications is pending or was denied after June 6, 2022. Tenants who have questions about the status of their application can call the hotline at 833-430-2122. That's 833-430-2122. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in 1 wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Who do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
Harry Dunn, tell me how your background in law enforcement is going to aid and abet you as a member of Congress.
You know, first of all, I got to acknowledge what you said about Mr. Lewis,
Sure.
the late, great John Lewis. I would be honored to even, be in the same conversation of a legislator as him. I mean, I got a lot to prove, and I just hope and pray that one day he could look down and say I made him proud and made him happy. So I got to acknowledge that. But as far as my law enforcement background, you know what? I have always believed, we have a problem in law enforcement. We need good individuals in the institution of law enforcement, and reform is definitely needed. However, I tried to bring to the approach when I was a police officer to treat everybody as humans, to treat everybody as people.
Yes.
One of my good friends, when I heard him speak, he said something that really resonated with me. People want 3 things. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be respected. And I brought that approach when I was a police officer. Everybody had a story, and I respected them. I saw them as people, as humans. And, that helped me serve as I was also one of the crisis intervention officers on the department. So when I saw people as people and not necessarily as threats immediately. So I can, just being able to relate to individuals, listening to people and seeing what are they upset about. Just because it's not a big deal to me, it may be a big deal to them. And we can't be dismissive of individuals and their thoughts. And that's one of the things I think that helps me in this race, being able to listen to people. And I see myself as a vessel. This isn't a me agenda right here. This is, the people. And I just want to be a vessel for the people, to give them a voice in the halls of Congress, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing.
Yep. Let me ask you right quick about just got 2 minutes left here. Let me ask you right quick whether or not 3 years later the Capitol is safer. We saw how y'all got overrun 3 years ago. If something like that were to happen again, and God knows it could, is the Capitol safer 3 years later?
I was never on the end for those conversations. I was just a frontline officer that, got disseminated information in real time. But, my last 3 years before, after January 6th, the department did make leaps and bounds to improve. But who knows? It's the same voice, the people responsible for January 6th, I'm sure they're improving also. So it still remains a threat. It still remains a threat. We need to keep our heads on the swivel, so to speak.
I got you.
And we need to be aware.
Last question, since everybody knows who you are and you are putting yourself out there to run for public office, and I ain't got a problem with that. We have to assign ourselves, offer ourselves up. I'll give you a chance right quick to tell folk how they can find out more about your campaign and even donate if they want to.
Sure. Harry Dunn for Congress, FOR, Congress.com. I really appreciate any donation. You believing in me means the world to me, and I cannot do this without the people. The money is nice, the money is necessary, but what I got to get out there and do is identify with the voters and get them to believe in me too. So thank you so much for giving me this platform and this time.
HarryDunnForCongress.com is how you can connect with him. Thank you once again for your service. All the best on the campaign, and thank you for the conversation. I appreciate you, sir. Have a great rest of the day.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
All right, Harry. When we come forward, more of Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Nevada, a Las Vegas judge is setting bail at $750,000. Trial begins in June. We're now learning that a lawsuit has been filed in Louisiana seeking